It's 7:45 EEST on the 21st of May 2025. On the Boyko Towers gas platform complex in the northwest Black Sea, a thin morning light meets red warning lights on a control console. The naval radar's display flickers, then it floods with new blips. Technicians shout, alarms blare. Men in coveralls scramble to battle stations while a shoreside operator calls for damage reports. Outside, something fast cuts the horizon. A streak of foam and spray, a small, unmanned surface vessel riding low and hard. And between it and the platform, tiny darting silhouettes flash like angry wasps. FPV quadcopters on a collision course. Smoke pops from a fuel line. A distant flash answers with a shower of sparks. The platform's rotating radar antenna tilts and freezes mid-sweep. The next minutes will decide whether this complex keeps standing or collapses into the sea. Hands move over radios. Eyes track the incoming swarm. The crew knows they have seconds, not minutes, to stop what's coming. The Black Sea has always been a crossroads, a place where energy, food, and trade routes converge. For Ukraine, every platform or outpost seized by Russia since 2014 is a scar. The Boyko Towers are one of those scars. Once civilian gas rigs, now turned into fortified military outposts with radar and surveillance gear. They guard approaches near Snake Island, a strategic point controlling lanes toward Odessa. On the 21st of May 2025, this quiet-looking structure was more than steel and pipes. It was a shield, scanning the sea, warning Russian forces of anything moving across the water. Destroying it meant punching a hole in the enemy's vision, blinding them in a key sector. But striking it carried huge risk. The towers were not just defended, they were a symbol of occupation, heavy with propaganda value. Ukraine's SBU Special Operations brought together two worlds for this mission. Cheap but deadly FPV drones in the sky, and the massive Sea Baby unmanned boats racing across the waves. On one side, Russian radar operators clung to outdated Soviet-era systems. On the other, Ukrainian crews guided expendable machines, each one worth a fraction of the millions in equipment they targeted. If this clash went Ukraine's way, it would prove that small, improvised weapons could topple heavy, entrenched defenses. If not, it would mean another failed strike and more propaganda for Moscow. The balance of cost and risk made this fight more than just a skirmish. It was a signal to the world that the war at sea was evolving fast. And here's where you come in. If you think Ukraine's gamble with drones will keep breaking Russia's grip, press 1 inch the comments. If you believe heavy defenses will still hold, press 9. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next battle at sea. 7:55 East. 10 minutes after first contact, the radar blips became hard reality. The Russian crew could now see them, small black dots buzzing in from the east, low and fast. FPV drones, each carrying a 3-kilogram warhead, diving for weak spots in the structure. Alarms rang again. Technicians scrambled to grab rifles and light machine guns, aiming skyward. On a platform designed for drilling, not war, this was all they had. The first drone swooped toward the spinning naval radar antenna. A burst of gunfire missed wide. The drone weaved, corrected, then slammed into the dish. The explosion tore metal apart. Sparks showered. The radar died instantly. With one hit, Ukraine blinded the outpost. Seconds later, another drone skimmed the deck. This one aimed for the fuel tanks clustered at the rear. A defender hit it with a lucky shot. The drone spiraled, hit a railing, and detonated short. Fire splashed across the deck. Men ducked for cover. Smoke rolled into the sky, black against the morning Sunday. Meanwhile, the real hammer was still closing in. At sea level, the 6-meter Sea Baby USV charged across the waves. Twin inboard motors screamed. The boat carried nearly 1,000 kilograms of explosives, more than enough to rip the steel legs from under the tower. Russian spotters finally saw the spray plume, shouted into radios, and tried to aim heavy weapons mounted on the deck. But without radar and under drone harassment, coordination collapsed. Ukraine's operators kept pressure constant. Another FPV slammed into the accommodation block, setting mattresses and wiring ablaze. Flames roared upward. Defenders struggled to fight both fire and incoming drones. The distraction worked. By 8:05, the Sea Baby was just minutes away. Inside their control station hundreds of miles away, the Ukrainian crew watched live video feeds. Hands steady on joysticks, voices calm but clipped, they guided both air and sea assets with precision. Each second mattered. The mission was no longer about just damaging equipment, it was about collapsing the whole tower. The horizon thundered again as another drone struck home. The defenders were breaking. The opening move was over. The decisive blow was now racing in. 8:10 East. The Sea Baby surged closer. Spray flew from its bow as engines roared. Russian defenders, coughing from smoke, tried to re-establish order. Without radar, they relied on eyesight and nerves. Tracers stitched across the waves but fell short. The drone boat kept racing in. Above, another cluster of FPVs cut through the air. Some were shot down, bursting early in bright fireballs. Others slipped lower, forcing defenders to split fire. One struck a platform leg and sent a tremor up the tower. Bolts rattled, dust shook loose, men braced against rails. Gunners shifted tactics, skimming rounds across the waterline. Bullets snapped over the Sea Baby, spraying foam. The vessel swerved, then corrected. Each input from its pilot carved a cleaner line toward the target. Seconds remained. Ukrainian drones dragged fire at deck corners, baiting guns away. Fuel drums ruptured and burned. Black smoke curled upward, choking defenders and cutting sightlines. Radios overlapped. Orders clashed. A loader fumbled a belt. A gun fell silent. Improvised shields, metal sheets, carts, even doors covered firing points. Hose teams tried to push flames back, but heat beat them down. The deck was slick with foam and diesel. A gunner fired short bursts at a low drone, then ducked as fragments peppered the catwalk. Out on the water, the Sea Baby's bow camera ticked fast. 1 kilometer, then 900. A near miss smeared the feed. The pilot wiped it with a quick tilt. The boat slid into a trough, vanished, then popped up closer. Another FPV smashed a junction box, killing floodlights. The tower groaned. A walkway buckled. Defenders fired blind at the wake. Defense by habit, not plan. Rounds bracketed the boat. Shrapnel pinged off the hull. The pilot lined up a support column, the shot that could end the tower. The engine note climbed. Wind gusts dragged the smoke sideways, opening a narrow window. The pilot seized it. "Mark 200 meters," a voice called, counting down. On deck, a sergeant waved men back from the rail, then leaned in to fire a last burst. Casings rattled down the ladder, hot and useless. If you think the drones will finish the job, press 1. If you believe the defenders can still hold, press 9. And hit subscribe so you don't miss how this standoff ends. 8:15 East. Just when the Russians braced for impact, the threat changed. From the haze of smoke came smaller, faster shapes, skimming just above the water. Miniature USV decoys and strikers mixed together darted in. Harder to track, harder to hit. Each one could be packed with explosives. The defenders, already panicked by the big Sea Baby, now had to split their focus again. Gunners swung barrels wildly, chasing wakes. Some shots hit, sending spray and foam into the air. Others missed, and the new swarm pressed closer. The neat lines of defense collapsed into chaos. Ukrainian operators had held their ace until now. These fast boats were meant to confuse, to draw fire, to open the last gap for the main strike. On the deck, Russian voices overlapped in desperate radio calls. Orders contradicted each other. Ammunition ran low. The platform was fighting blind. The Sea Baby close to 500 meters. The mini-boats weaved around it, shields of noise and distraction. Every tracer wasted on them meant fewer rounds at the true killer. The defenders knew it but couldn't stop themselves. They fired anyway. Steel groaned as another FPV smashed into a support beam. Fire climbed higher, licking across the deck. The entire rig now looked like a burning cage, alive with drones in the air and boats below. Every second mattered. From their remote console, Ukrainian controllers called out ranges 400, 350, 300. The countdown ticked faster. The main USV surged forward, white spray trailing like a comet tail. In the command room, operators leaned close to their screens, hands steady. eyes locked. Each breath matched the engine's roar, each heartbeat another meter gained. The strike was now seconds away. 8:18 east. The Sea Baby roared ahead, closing fast. 200 meters. The defenders leaned over the rail, spraying rounds down into the foam. Shell casings rattled across the deck, hands blistered, eyes stung from smoke. The big drone boat didn't flinch. An FPV dove straight into a gun mount, detonating on impact. Metal shrieked, flames burst, and the weapon fell silent. The crew scattered, coughing and shouting. With every second, defense unraveled. 150 meters. The Sea Baby cut through a wall of spray, engines screaming. Russian rifles snapped and cracked, bullets skipping off steel. Shrapnel chipped paint, but the boat held course. 100 meters. The Ukrainians watched live feeds, voices sharp. Steady, hold, on screen, crosshairs fixed on the tower's central leg. The pilot guided with tiny corrections, like threading a needle. 75 meters. Another FPV sliced low, drawing fire away at the last second. Tracers followed it off to the side, leaving the Sea Baby clear. The boat surged. 50 meters. The defenders fired their last bursts, desperate and ragged. A gun jammed, another overheated. Fire raged behind them. Smoke wrapped the tower in black coils. Men shouted over radios, but no orders carried meaning anymore. 30 meters. The camera feed blurred as spray covered the lens. The operator tilted once, then locked in. The tower loomed large, steel beams glowing in morning Sunday. Impact. A flash swallowed the screen. The explosion tore upward, shredding support columns. Fireballs punched through decks. Metal twisted and snapped. The entire rig shuddered, then began to sag. Smoke mushroomed skyward as the platform collapsed in stages radar gone. Living quarters shattered. Fuel tanks erupting in chains of fire. Waves boiled around the base as twisted steel plunged into the sea. For the men who fought there, the battle ended in seconds. For the operators watching miles away, the screen went white, then black. Mission complete. A faint tremor rolled across the water. Seagulls scattered as shards rained down like hail around them. Now it's your call. Was this the moment small drones proved unstoppable? Or can heavy defenses still hold the line? Comment 1 or 9, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes after this strike. The Boyko Towers were gone. Steel that once rose above the Black Sea now lay broken, twisted, and smoking beneath the waves. The naval radar was ash, the living quarters shattered, the whole rig a ruin. For Russia, it was more than a loss of equipment. It was a gaping hole in surveillance and a blow to pride. For Ukraine, the strike was proof. A platform that once guarded approaches to Odessa was neutralized not by jets or missiles, but by small drones and one unmanned boat built at a fraction of the cost. The material loss was lopsided. Tens of millions gone for Moscow, under 100,000 spent by Kyiv. That imbalance is the new reality of modern war. The wider impact spread fast. Insurance rates for shipping shifted overnight. Moscow scrambled to adjust patrols. NATO analysts watched closely, noting how a mix of cheap FPVs and a single heavy USV had cracked open a fortified position. Each successful raid inspires copycats, and allies now weigh how to adapt, but the lesson cuts both ways. Every cheap drone forces defenders to fire costly weapons, and each attack teaches Russia how to patch gaps. What works today may fail tomorrow. The sea war is now a cycle of move and counter, strike and response. Still, this night belonged to Ukraine. The Black Sea remained open, at least for now. The message was clear. Heavy steel can fall to fast, flexible machines. The question is how long that advantage lasts, and whether Russia can change the balance with missiles, aircraft, or something new. By morning, satellite shots would show the rig listing in a crooked ring of debris. Russian workboats would circle for survivors and salvageable gear. Engineers would argue over how to restore coverage or tow in a replacement mast. Ukraine, meanwhile, would scrub the footage frame by frame, tuning routes, blast heights, and timing. Each lesson squeezes more effect from every cheap airframe and every liter of fuel. If you believe drones have permanently tilted the fight, press 1 inch the comments. If you think defenses will adapt and hold, press 9. and subscribe so you're here when the next strike comes, because it will.